Have you ever looked in the mirror and not recognized the woman that was looking back at you? Or have you ever looked at your life and start to wonder, how on earth did I get here? I've been there and I created this video for you. If you're a woman physician, today I'm going to be talking to you about 3 things that you can do to finally prioritize yourself in your own life without guilt or shame holding you back. So I'm Dr. Jeannie Lawrence. I am a life coach for women physicians. I'm also a board certified psychiatrist and the founder and CEO of Sanctuary for Women Physicians, where my mission is to help women physicians create lives that feel as good inside as they look on the outside. So let's go. My story is, I remember very clearly this day, standing in my kitchen several years ago. I was wearing a t-shirt, right, that probably had stains on it, some sweatpants that were way past their prime, cleaning up, right, nails unmanicured, all the things. And for a moment, I realized that I had lost sight of myself, right? I was so weighed down every day with the mundane tasks of trying to be a good homemaker, a good wife, a good doctor, all of these things, that I had lost sight of who I was. I was no longer the person, right, who thought that she could do anything and be anything like I was as a girl. I was no longer that high school student, right, who graduated top of her class and who was voted most likely to succeed. I was no longer that doctor even who was in love with her work, right, and able to manage complex patients and manage her team without missing a beat. I was no longer that girl who believed that life was my oyster, right? And that I could do and be anything that I chose to be. And instead, I had become a shell of myself, someone who was so committed to trying to prove her worth to other people who would probably never see it, that I was shrinking, right? And I was becoming a smaller version of myself, trying to check all of the boxes, trying to do all the things in hopes that people would think I was good and good enough. That realization really hit me hard, right? I missed who I was, and not that I needed to go back to a version of myself from 10 or 15 or 20 years prior, but I missed the part of me, the version of me who was confident and who knew that I could do and be anything, right? And who knew that I was a leader and who knew that I was a boss and who knew that I had so much value to add to the world beyond just the mundane tasks that I was constantly, doing day in and day out. And so that really started me on this path to shift and start to create a life that really felt authentic to me, right? And really lights me up. And I want to share what I did with you so that if you're a woman physician feeling similarly, you can do the same. 3 things that I want you to do to start to rediscover who you are, what you want, and start to prioritize yourself in your life once again. Step number 1, what really changed things for me was a pause. I remember my first vision retreat. It was a time where I was able to get away from my home, from all the mundane life and tasks and all of the things that I was doing on autopilot, and join in with other people who were like-minded and who were growth-minded. And the facilitator of that retreat asked powerful questions like, what do you want? A lot of times as women physicians, nobody asks us that anymore, right? Like, once you're an adult and you're an attending, no one's asking like what you dream of, what you want, what do you desire out of life, right? It's like you take on these roles and your path is set and you become someone who is only here to serve other people. And so that's where I found myself. But at that vision retreat, things started to shift, right? I started to use my imagination a little bit for the first time in many years and started to dream like, what do I want my life to look like, right? How do I want to feel in my life? What do I want to create? What kind of impact? What kind of legacy do I want to have? How do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to spend it with? And I think a lot of times we forget that we have choices around those things. Again, it feels very plug and play in medicine, right? Once you've, decided on your path, on your specialty, like it's just plug and play, right? and you just kind of do it and follow that path. But in real life, at a certain point, you realize, and what I realized is that I still had choices, right? My life wasn't over because I had finished residency and gotten my first job out of residency. It was far from over. I had so many other options and things that I could think about as I started to design my life. And so that's the first step, is starting to believe that I want you to start to believe that, one, you have the option to live a life by design instead of by default. And before you can do that, I should say, step number one really is to pause and reflect and breathe, right? I had to take that time away from my day-to-day life to even have the mental space to start to dream again. Okay. Remember who you are in that pause, right? Remember what you used to love to do. Remember what lit you up. Remember the dreams and the desires you once held, and start to believe that maybe that's possible again. Number two, get honest about what you want. I coach lots of women physicians. I host workshops, and I'm always talking to women physicians about what they want. And I can tell you that the first time I asked that question of a woman physician, 90% of the time, she tells me something that she thinks is realistic. She tells me something that she thinks is socially acceptable. She tells me something that she thinks she should want based on what somebody else told her. And it really takes a bit of my process and a little bit of work to uncover what she truly, truly desires, right? So I'll give you an example, right? So I was coaching recently, like very recently, a woman physician who, on her first call with me, I asked her what she desired in her life and in her career specifically. And she shared some things that she'd like to have a career where she enjoyed going to work, for example, right? Her workplace had become very, very toxic, and what she wanted was just to kind of fit herself back into that workspace. She wanted to stop being bullied. She wanted to fix herself in order to better suit the leadership and the folks that she had to work with in her place of work. But after we kind of got underneath the surface, it turns out that that's not actually what she wanted at all. That's just what she thought she had to want, right? That's what her brain told her was realistic for her, right? What she really wanted is to move to a warmer climate. She wanted to work in a practice where she was appreciated, maybe even do her own thing one day. And once she started sharing that vision and those goals with me, her energy shifted, right? And she started to light up. And that's what your dreams and desires should do, right? They shouldn't be laden with obligation and shoulds and needs, but like, what do you want? Because what you want still matters. What you want still matters. It doesn't matter how long you've, been taking care of other people and being a doctor and a mom and a wife. What you want still matters. And you got to be honest about it, because what happens is a lot of times women physicians will say we want something, right? One of those kind of need, should-based desires. We work towards it, but when we get there, we're not happy with it. Why? Because it was never what you wanted in the first place. Get honest about what you want. No shame. No, it doesn't have to be realistic right away, but just start to let your mind go and decide what you really want. Step number 3, align your life with your truth, right? So what this means is a lot of times our to-do lists are full of things that need to be done for other people. And even our goal setting is like moving us towards, again, a future that we don't deeply, deeply desire, but more like something that we feel like we should want or need to desire. I want you to start to decide that your life is worth designing and that you are worth building your life around what you most desire. I have a client, right, who came to me one day and she was frustrated because she's very productive. She loves a good planner. She loves a good to-do list. It feels good to mark things off. She was doing all the things, okay? But when it came to her goals and her dreams, she wasn't getting anything done. And she was beating herself up because by the end of a long day of taking care of everyone else, work and all the things, she had no energy. She had no bandwidth, and she would naturally, as a human being, crash. Well, what I shared with her is that she needed a paradigm shift, right? It wasn't that her productivity or her planning was lacking. It was that she still had very much ingrained in her mind the idea that everything else needs to come first. And then at the end of a busy day, if I can fit myself in, then great. Unfortunately, most days that doesn't happen. And so years and years and years can go by where you're stuck in environments, workspaces, relationships, all kinds of things that don't serve you, don't feel right, that aren't right for you. And guess what? Life is passing us by, right? And we don't get a second chance. And so what I had her do, and what I want to recommend to you as step number 3, is to put your life before your work. Put your desires, put your goals, put your dreams before all the other obligations, right? Now, if you're wondering, Jeannie, how do I do that, right? Like, that sounds all well and good, but like, I got bills and what's everybody gonna say? I want to tell you that the biggest block is not in the putting life before work, but it's the emotions that come with trying to do that, right? I bet you feel guilty, right? I bet you feel a little bit afraid. And those are powerful emotions that keep people stuck for years. And it kept me stuck for many years until I learned the tools to become what I call emotionally fluent. Until I learned how to become aware of my emotional state, how they were driving me, and then also found the tools to change the narrative, right? So that I could move in the direction of what I most desired without guilt, without burning everything down, but also without constantly denying myself, right? And so that's something I teach inside Sanctuary for Women Physicians: emotional fluency, emotional mastery, so that when we breathe, right, that first step, when we create a life by design instead of by default, and we commit to taking the actions that are authentic to what we want and align with what we want, that we can actually execute on it and do it. And it goes beyond this head knowledge, like, oh, I need to prioritize myself, to actually doing it and feeling really wonderful in the process. So if that sounds like appealing to you, if that's something that you want, if you're a woman physician who wants to live authentically, right? Who wants to say yes to you more often, right? Who wants to create a life that feels as good inside as it looks on the outside without burning your whole life down, I can help you. I want to invite you to get on a call with me. I'd love to hear your story, where you are, where you'd love to be, and start to bridge that gap for you through the work that we do inside Sanctuary. So comment below, reach out, DM me. I'll leave the link as well where you can sign up for one of those free calls with me, and I'd love to see you inside. Bye-bye.